Hi, everybody. Dorothy here, professional astrologer right here. Find me on the web, nhastrologer.com. So today I'm going to talk about, I usually do weekly forecasts, right? You guys don't know me for doing much more than that. I'm going to talk about Mars in Aries because I have Mars in Aries. It's in my 12th house, so most people won't know it. But let's honor Mars in Aries. We've got a long transit with him in that sign, 7 months, right? Let me get out my notes. So if I look away, it's because I'm reading my notes. And I just spent 6 hours today writing all of this out. And thank you to my colleague, Dory, for editing. I'm not always the best grammar comma police. So she helped me out with that. Thank you. So you can read this on my website. It's about 7 pages long. So I'll put the link. It's right below in here on YouTube. So what I want to talk about today is, Mars and Aries. And the reason I want to talk about it is just really important considering where we're at in the world today. So in this broadcast, it will be informative, but also educational, because I want to talk about, what we're going through, right? And how we can use this Mars in Aries in a productive way as best we can. I mean, it's going to do what it's going to do in the world around us. And there's no doubt there'll be a fair amount of upheaval and chaos. There already is, right? We already know that. We can already feel that. But when we have Mars in Aries, it happens every 2 years. But this year it's retrograde in that sign. And so that makes it a little bit unique because I decided, it's important to look back and follow patterns. That's what astrology does. Astrology and where the planets are in the sky and how we astrologers interpret it, definitely it represents, it's a reflection of what we have going on here on the planet. A lot of us are talking about that. It's typically how it is. Doesn't make us do anything. Sometimes I slip and I just say it does, but really know that the planets aren't making us do anything. They're just reflecting what's going on in our natural progression as individuals and as a species. So that being said, Mars is retrograde. Mars is in Aries, actually, from June 27th all the way until January 7th, 2021. So that's all the way to next year. So in just a few days of the posting of this, Mars enters the sign of Aries. It will retrograde from September 7th through November 13th. That's East Coast time. And between the degrees of 28 Aries, and it backs up to 15 Aries. And then, of course, it has to come back again. So in this video forecast, and then the written forecast, like I said, is on my website, nhastrologer.com. You can read it there. So let's get started because I want this sort of to be an educational thing. You'll see me hit pause here and there just so I can get a break and gather more notes. There's a lot to cover in this today. All right. And I am my own video editor, as I always have been. And right now I'm using Zoom because it's fun and I like it, and it just works out good for me that way. So let's get started. And if you have questions, I'm always up to date on, watching my YouTube comments and things like that, and wherever this is. So you just ask questions. If you need to know personal information, again, right here on my website, hit the contact button and you can get a hold of me there. So Mars and Aries, on all kinds of levels, we're going to be working through what is a very individualized energy. Aries is represented by I am. I am are the two main keywords for Aries. So are we going to be I am selfish, or are we going to be I am self-focused and self-centered? There are very different ways to look at this, Mars in Aries, of course, is in its natural placement, so it's very happy there. We have an opportunity here to really engage in what it is that we want. I think we need that right now, right? Considering all of the things that are in upheaval. And it is showing up in some negative ways, but it can also show up in some positive ways. So Mars in Aries is action, it's drive, it's inspiration, it's our passion, it's what we're competitive about, it's where we're enthusiastic, it's what we desire, it's our excitement. so many things. It's that creative spark that begins life, through sexual relations. It's that inspiration, that moment of inspiration for a project or an idea. That's Mars and Aries. It's not a negative thing, but many people will use it as a negative thing. It's our job to stay in a higher vibration, and it's our job to be inspired, and it's Mars and Aries' job to motivate us to move forward, right? That's what it's here for. So we get to use this energy in whatever way we want to use it. Later in this, I will talk about where Mars is in when it's in each of the zodiac signs, and we'll go through all of that in a little while. So that's that piece. All right, let me move my page here. All right. So some of the positive, I already covered some of the positive traits of Mars and Aries, right? Being passionate and being enthusiastic, and that drive and that excitement, that spark of life and those creative ideas. And that is definitely Mars and Aries. And it's not meant to follow through. And that's not a negative, because all of these signs and all of these planets and signs, they all have a purpose. Mars and Aries, again, is to inspire us. It's not about the follow through. That is other signs that have to pick up that pace, that have to pick up that, picking up what I'm putting down. When I'm in Aries and Mars is in Aries, and again, 7 months as opposed to 7 weeks is a very long time. And this is normal when Mars is retrograde, to spend that much time in a certain area of the zodiac, forward, backwards, forwards, right? And we'll get into that. So some of the challenging traits that we're going to come up with that are going to show us, right? Because we're all going to see what we're focusing on. And there are times when I'm not a negative, selfish person. I am impatient once in a while. That's my Mars and Aries, but I'm not overly impulsive. But the thing is, it's like, I'm still going to see it if I turn the news on at the wrong time, And if you're somebody who is consistently focusing on what people are doing that are terrible and bad, then that is what you're going to see. But if you're somebody this is Mars and Aries too. We're already seeing these energies. Mars is in Pisces right now at the recording of this. Mars in Pisces in May and June, part of May and almost all of June. So we are seeing, the emotional air, Mars in Pisces, the emotional steam coming to the surface lately. But when Mars is in Aries, it's as pure as it gets. It's this natural impulse to be in, but sometimes it needs to be impatient and selfish, and it has a quick temper. And, we try to rush through things because we just don't have the patience to see things through, and we try and rush. And these are some of the things that are a problem. We can create healthy competition, but in a negative sense, we create conflict and aggression and forced aggression. And we're seeing that again in the world around us, because right now at this recording, before Mars has entered Aries, Mars is in Pisces. So we're really feeling that overall theme of, being very emotional, and we can feel the collective anger or the collective fear coming to the surface. And we're seeing that. So once Mars does get into the sign of Aries, there is some, in a sense, and again, I'm an optimist, but there are harsh things that we have to face in the world today, right? And so that Mars in Aries is definitely here to show that to us. Mars wants to address the disenfranchised. Mars wants to fight for what we think is right without thinking too deeply about it. We have so many different ways that we can use this energy, because when we see it in the world or it's in our environment, right, whether it's a family member or even a friend, and they're showing some aggression or some stress, or you see it on TV and that triggers you, then the energy around that means that there is something within you that you need to work through, right? Because everything is always a reflection. So it's an opportunity here with Mars and Aries, and especially if you get upset and you feel like your anger is sort of stirring inside, and somebody or something or someone is just upsets you, consistently, then I want you don't have to address them, because with Mars and Aries, that feels too confrontational. If you feel you need to, then do it. But if you feel that you could accomplish more by figuring it out for yourself, why am I triggered by this? Why does that person upset me so? Why is that person's action so important to me that I'm mad and I don't even know them? We need to address that within ourselves. This is a big thing for all of us in the world today. We definitely need to understand ourselves in a deeper place. What this pandemic and the movement of Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto and Capricorn is really triggering a lot. Throughout the 7 months, I'm not addressing everything in this broadcast, but throughout the 7 months that Mars is in Aries, at some point in time, I don't have it memorized, I'm sorry, because I have so much in front of me right now, that Mars in Aries will make a square aspect to the Capricorn planets, Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then subscribe to my channel, and every week I'll give you an update on what's going on in a smaller context, because right now I'm just talking about 7 months. So potentially with Mars in Aries for the next 7 months, this is very significant for all of us, because again, 7 weeks is his usual route through a sign. When he's retrograde once every 2 years, it takes him approximately 7 months to go through that area of the zodiac. Again, this time it's in the sign of Aries, his own sign. So we have this opportunity now with all of the things that are going on in the world. There's a ton of conflict. There's a ton of misinformation. There's a ton of people that are angry and protesting, and that makes a lot of sense, because who shouldn't they should be? I mean, there's a lot of disenfranchised people in the world that really need to be heard. And this is where we're at, and this is not ending anytime soon. I can promise you that. That much I know. So we can reflect to March 19th, when the sun was at 0 Aries. Whatever was going on at that point in time, that was when the whole country, at least here in the United States, we were shutting down. So every year at that point in time, not every year, but a lot of years, that 0 degrees of Aries is a very important position. And again, Mars enters 0 Aries on the 27th. So what do we have going on here? March 19th, look at what was going on then, all right? Whether it's something personal or you want to focus on the global picture or the national picture. Look at what was going on. Just Google it. What was going on then for you guys, or for you, or for me, or for everybody, or a country, whatever your interest is. And we know now that when Mars enters that position and gets to that position on June 27th, we have this opportunity to really kick things into action. All right. So that's going to be big. And that's why this Mars in Aries feels so strong. We need to empower ourselves as individuals, and not everybody can do that. Some people can do it really well. Not everybody can do it. And that's why, again, we get triggered by what other people do. I have a lot, I'll be personal, and you guys know me. My Mars in Aries is in my 12th house, and it's in an interception, because I use the Placidus house system. I do not use equal houses or even whole sign houses. I've been using Placidus since 1988. That's when I started studying astrology. So I want you to know, not all of us are aggressive. I've hardly ever gotten so super mad that I'm seeing red, just a couple times in my whole life. Do I defend myself? Typically not. So Mars stirring those things up. Oh, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to go through the houses a little later. And if we're here on YouTube, I might time tag them if I can remember how to do that. I'll have to Google that too. All right. So what can we expect? I've already mentioned a lot of different keywords. Again, go to the forecast and you can read it or just rewind and write it out. The things that mean something to you. You're not going to feel everything, but you're going to feel some of these things. We're all going to feel some of these things. There's no way around it. So we know the current transformation that we're in, and we are ready to take action. Now, Mars in Aries lots of times too, and even when the sun enters Aries, tend to have wars begin on that day. Will there be wars? The potential is there. Let's be honest. The potential is there. We've started, the world has started many, many wars on the day of 0 Aries, especially when the sun is there. But now that the planet that rules that Aries sign, which is Mars, is there, there is the potential for that, for conflict. There's no doubt about it. And so on a personal level, look at the conflict within you, find your Aries point. That's where 0 Aries is in your chart, right? And that's getting activated. Your self-centeredness, your self-focus is being activated. Who am I? I am changing now. If you haven't gone through some growth and some change due to this pandemic over the last few months, since all of 2020 so far, then now is the time. All right. So that's a piece of that. Now I also want you to look back to, let me find my notes, 1988. And why am I talking about 1988 and it's 2020? Because the last time Mars was retrograde in the sign of Aries was 1988. And let me look here. So Mars is in Aries every few years, right? Every couple of years. Whips right through there. But again, when it's retrograde, that means we get 10 times the time almost to really dig in to what is personal for you, for me. We get to fight for it. I know, fisticuffs. No, sorry. Anyways, it's so funny. I make jokes with myself. I'm a Gemini, so I say we all the time. So here we are. All right. Mars moves. Here, I'm going to look at my notes. Mars, every 2 years, that's not uncommon. What's uncommon is the last time it was retrograde, it started August 26, 1988 is when it was retrograde, when it was in Aries the last time. August 26, 1988 through October 27th, 1988. That's when he was retrograde. And he moved from 11 degrees of Aries. He went into Pisces, 29 degrees of Pisces for just 1 week. But then he popped right back in because he's stationed at like 29, 59 Pisces. It was crazy. He just slipped in there and it came right back out. It's like a cat in water. He's like, whoop, no, and shakes his hand off. That was 1988. So August 26th to October 27th, retrograde in Aries for the most part. And you need to look back to that period. All right. And even if you're astrologically inclined, 11 degrees of Pisces and from 29 Pisces, to 11 degrees of Aries, that was in 1988. What were you doing? What were you initiating? What were you starting? How were you changing things? So the same area of the chart, most likely, but not always. If you use whole sign houses, it's going to be the same house. But if you use Placidus like me, it could shift from one house to another. And the only way to know that is just to know your chart. Or, here I am. I do readings. I can help you out with that. So what do we want to do with that? We want to look at what was going on back then in the world. We already know what's going on in the world right now. There is so much upheaval. The United States is in its Pluto return. Not quite. That's a couple of years away. But the transit of Jupiter, and Saturn are going across the United States Pluto. They've been there already once. At this recording, they're just about there for the second time, and they'll hit it a third time later in the fall during elections time, during the time we do our elections in November. Mars is retrograde in Aries during the election in November. The day of the election, November 3rd, Mercury is stationary to go direct, meaning the election results will be a little slow coming in. All right. We will not know on that day who wins. Things will be slow. It won't be certain. All right. So there's just going to be, between now and when Mars is out of Aries, just a lot of action, a lot of upheaval, a lot of people really standing up for what they believe in. This is going to be so important for us. This is so important for us. I know it feels scary for some people, but this is growth, and this is movement, and this is action. And this is like childbirth. If you know anything about childbirth, you know, sometimes we have our false labor, and then sometimes we're in labor for hours. And right now we're in the midst of that. But when Mars gets into Aries, then, you know, it's not like where it's false labor or it stops. It's like we're in active labor, and it is painful, and it takes effort, and it takes work. But if you focus on what it is you want, and you move through these things in a sense of really understanding what is important to you, doing your own work, feeling very empowered. Like, I'm finally going to go do this. This is really what I want to do. If the last few months of quarantine and stay-at-home orders hasn't taught you that if you don't like what you're doing, why are you going to go do it? Now, I understand right now, until we get financially back, you know, boosted again for some of us, you know, that's fine. It's not a cop out. But you've recognized, a lot of people out there have recognized that what they're doing is not what they should be doing, and is not important for them anymore. And it's time to use this Mars in Aries to find a way to step into your own power and take that opportunity to really get involved with what's important for you. This is what we're going to do with this energy. Okay? It's so exciting. And I know it feels scary for some of us. I mean, it sure does. I mean, why wouldn't it? Nobody likes the unknown. But if anything, Mars in Aries is incredibly present energy, because it is only focused on right now. What will satisfy me right now? What do I need to do right now? That is Mars in Aries. It is so important that we recognize that. And I mean, we can plan. There's other planets involved, and there's other things going on, and there's then your personal charts. But if we could just really step into what's important for me right now and stay in as much of the present moment as you possibly can, and very aware of your interactions with others, other people who are triggering you, why that's happening, how you can move through it, how you can heal it, how you can process it, how you can take your power back. All of those things are so important. And I'm just focusing on Mars and Aries, not focusing on all of the other things, because again, the dynamics of this is blowing my mind, like everybody is, right? So here's a few things that were happening last time Mars was retrograde in Aries. At least in Aries, not quite retrograde. Let's see. I'll have this in the written forecast. In July 1988, Reverend Jesse Jackson arrived in Atlanta for the Democratic National Convention, telling his cheering supporters that he's seeking and sharing the responsibility with the apparent nominee, Michael Dukakis. I remember this. Oh my God, this is a very Aries moment. All of these national conventions are, because everybody's just like tooting their own horn. So they're always that way, right? And that's pretty cool. And another thing that I found pretty fascinating, I mean, there's tons of things. I just did Wikipedia. There's tons of fun things, but I happened to get on a movie website, and on the day Mars entered Aries back in 1988, in that cycle that it would be retrograde later on in the month, a couple months later, Die Hard, the first Die Hard movie with Bruce Willis, that was opening day, was July 14th, 1988. Now, that is just kick butt Aries energy. Go look it up if you don't know that movie. That movie, they must have had an astrologer to launch that movie. They had to have, Mars and Aries, and it was just everything about guns and terrorists and fires and bombs and explosions and beating people up. It was just like, it was such a successful movie. If you need to, what a cool way to use energy like this sometimes too, is if you are feeling aggressive and it's not your nature and it's uncomfortable for you, watch a movie like that. It's a little violent, but go find something violent. That's actually a way, and I know that's not PC, but it's the truth. You're using the energy in a certain way. Watch something. All right, here's another way. I don't write this in the forecast because I sometimes I just forget to go there. Watch something super sexy and hot, or watch, a movie that is just so packed full of energy, firefighters. I mean, whatever. You've got all of these things to choose from. That these are also ways that we can really use our energy in a positive way. If things weren't in lockdown, if things like movies weren't being produced during this time period, I'm betting you anything during Mars retrograde, especially now this year, we would have a lot of movies like that coming out, just because it's just people feel that energy, even if they're not paying attention to the astrology. 1988, I can't believe it sounds like 100 years ago, especially you young people who might be listening to this. 1988 was a crucial year for the internet. This was just when the first internet virus, it was called an internet worm, came through. The internet was brand spanking new. So there was a whole lot going on with there. Let's see, the Soviet Union was making major deconstruction towards a mixed economy at the beginning of 1988. The Iron Curtain began to disintegrate in 1988. It did fall in 1989, but that was beginning then too. These are like initiating actions. It's not the follow through, but these are big things that have been going on. So once again, look at your personal history. If you're old enough, I know people who are born here, some of my students some of my students and clients were born in 1988. This personally, here's some personal examples of how to use Mars in Aries. I have it in the Aries, I already mentioned. So I moved back from New Mexico. I was in New Mexico for a few years. I was married to the Air Force, and my ex-husband and I moved out there, and then I came back. So when I came back, I took over the family business, which was a flower shop. So I now had all these responsibilities, right? That's when I just started studying astrology. It was April of that year. So this is July when Mars went into Aries, my sign. So it gave me that initiative to start doing something different, right? Something spiritual. That was actually the beginning of my spiritual path, even though I didn't know it yet. I started using computers back then, right? So the Mercury system, they called it. Mercury, FTD, had the Mercury system. That was the first computerized system for sending orders through the telephone by a computer. Sounded like AOL, if you remember that old sound of AOL. You would turn your computer on and it would screech through and you would get an order on a dot matrix. Oh my God, it's just so old. I can't believe it's that long ago. You guys, you know what I mean, hopefully. All right. So those are the kind of things, those are examples. I started initiating a whole bunch of things. There was a lot of other things too. I was an amateur bodybuilder back then too. That's very Mars. Mars rules iron and strength and sports and that kind of action. So, you pick up iron, you pick it up, you put it down. So those are all the things I was doing then. Today, I'm paying the price. My back, my hips, my neck, right? I'm doing good massage. I'm doing chiropractor. I'm doing Pilates just so I can turn a little bit because, I beat the heck out of my body. But, that's what you do when you're young, right? I was only 28 back then. All right. So, I know right there is already a lot of information. So take a breath, hit pause if you need to. And, I do too, because I'm going to get a drink of water. So I'm hitting pause. Okay, I'm back. You didn't even know, did you? Well, you did, because I told you. All right, what else do I want to look at here? And I want you to remember, because I look at a lot of I interact with a lot of people, and there are so many people that when they find out that something's retrograde, especially Mercury, they immediately go into that pessimistic place that everything's going to go wrong, that they can't do anything for weeks. And that's not the case. Things go wrong all the time. And you just evaluate and then regroup and then move in the direction that's most important and that feels the best for you. So I just want you to remember that. I want you to remember that. Yeah. You can go into those negative places and those deep, dark places, but we can also use these energies in a very positive way, right? We can be, I'll look at my notes. We can be on our comfort zones. We can take action, initiate action. We can stand up for ourselves and our rights. And if other things are involved, other people too, new causes, right? But you know, there will be times when we're aggravated more than usual. There will be times when we're angry and things feel overbearing. So just look at the world around you. And again, remember what's triggering you, because if something's triggering you, then that means something is surfacing. And that for you is an opportunity to learn more about yourself, excuse me, and how to move through that. So you can easily let that go. All right. So let's talk now about shifting gears just a little bit. I'm going to talk about Mars retrograde. So it's retrograde September 9th to November 14th. So when Mars in Aries is retrograde, first off, I mean, we're going to slow down. It's like, you know, just pulling the emergency brake on when somebody's driving really fast. Stop, right? Creates a lot of smoke, creates a lot of problems. But what we need to do with this energy is we just need to slow down long enough so we can see where we're at, so we can take that information and use it over the 7 weeks that it's retrograde to see what we've been, actually it's more like 10 weeks that it's retrograde. Yeah, September 9th to November 14th. So that's October, November. So 8, 9, it's approximately 10 weeks. Yeah, I did misspeak there. So we can take that information, we can take our time. When Mars in Aries is retrograde, again, he wants to keep going like the toddler, don't stop me. But I've run into a roadblock now, I'm in reverse, right? Metaphorically speaking, Mars is in reverse. So at first, we might even feel like that little 2-year-old who's just pitching a fit in the store because, you know, mom's not giving the kid giving him what he wants, because Mars in Aries wants what it wants. And now something's saying no. And that's what the retrograde can feel like right off the bat. Doesn't have to, but that's what it can feel like. Some of us will take that as a relief. And it's like, oh my gosh, can we just slow down for a little while? And again, September 9th to November 14th, Election Day is in the middle of that. That's a big issue. I'll talk about it as we get closer. And so will other astrologers, because they're people who are much more political than I am. I try to stay away from that because my Mars in Aries is in the 12th house. I don't want conflict. I don't want conflict ever. I'll have conversations and I'll stick up for myself, but I don't want conflict and I don't want arguing. I remember when I was a little kid, this is how much I don't like it. And this is how childhood, I'm going to rat out my folks right now. This is how childhood imprints what past life stuff is. Because if I've come in with Mars in my 12th house, which means in my past life, I mean, I was way too assertive, way too aggressive, and too confrontational, among other things. So I don't like confrontation at all. When we would go on trips, there was 8 of us in the family, 6 kids, 2 parents. If I was sitting, everyone, for some reason, I don't know why, would sit in the front seat between my mother and my father. They argued like oh my God, they fought like cats and dogs. Oh my God. And I'm sitting in the middle. And I was like, no wonder. They did that till the day my dad died. That's just was their thing. But what it taught me, one of 6 kids, was that, oh man, I don't like confrontation. But so I've had to learn how to stick up for myself and be a little more independent in a lot of ways. So I've had quite a few experiences in my life that teach me how to do that, right? And it usually happens through really uncomfortable situations because I don't like people being aggressive at me. I don't like people being assertive to me. It bothers me, but I've had to learn why. Like I've already been explaining to you, why do I feel that way? Why is that person triggering me? What they do shouldn't matter to me at all. And so what's it triggering in me? So I'm able to work through this. And so that's a piece of what this is. So take your time. While Mars is retrograde, it will feel frustrated because Mars just wants to go. Again, like we're holding back a 2-year-old, doesn't want to stop. And it's going to cry, it's going to pitch a fit. But once it does that, I got the pitch a fit when I lived out in New Mexico. And it stayed with me. It's not a New England saying, is it? So don't be as judgmental about yourself as you will be. Try and forget that piece. Try and let that go. And hopefully you'll watch this a few times, just so you can get the gist of it. All right. Our natural state is to move forward. Mars in Aries natural state is just to move forward, initiate things, begin things, and just keep moving forward. Just, starting this here, you take it. Starting this here, you do that. But as that retrograde planet, we need to kind of sit back a little bit and take our time and watch what's going on. And if you feel frustrated, then work through it. Okay. So that's what I have there for that piece. And there's always more. Again, subscribe to this channel if you're on YouTube and hit the bell. But I give you the weekly forecast and you'll get a lot more information as it's coming through with all the other stuff that's going on. Because again, as we're isolating certain things just so we can learn, right? All right, so now I want to go through, I'm just going to give you a few sentences about Mars through the houses in the sign of Aries, right? So I'm always going to include all of that. And so I'm going to do that next. And yeah, that's what I'll do next. Okay, so let's get started. I just pulled up a couple charts while I was on pause. So I'm going to share the screen a little bit with you. There's a couple of things here. I want to share two. Can I share two things? Probably won't let me. Let's try that right there. Make this bigger. Oh, look at that. Here we are. So this is a typical astrology chart, right? So most of the time, I use the Placidus house system, so things aren't always equal like this, but I'm going to go over this with you, and I'm going to go over every house, just a few sentences about each one, so it won't be too awful long. This is where the first house is. That's where the second house is, third, fourth, and I'm going to tell you what they all mean. And again, if you don't know where it is for you, that's okay. I want you to go to my website, nhastrologer.com, if you want to know where the Mars retrograde is for you. Because unless you use whole sign houses, which is really popular today, that means each house will be equal 30 degrees, starting with whatever 0 degree zodiac, whatever sign you have on the ascendant, right? So, and that's not what I use. I use a Placidus house system, and I'm going to open that up too so you can just see it. So just today's transit chart, I'll show up that. I want to do a new share. So like here's the chart for right now, just as I'm recording this, 8 o'clock on June 23rd. You can see how things are different. Houses are different sizes. There's the midheaven hanging out over that way, right? A little further east. As it moves throughout the day, back and forth like a wave in a 24-hour period. So houses are different sizes in the Placidus house system, which that's just what I learned. Whatever you learn is fine for you too. So there's nobody can convince you to do one chart or another. It's just whatever you've learned, and then after years of practice, you'll decide what works for you. And I like Placidus. I also like Porphyry because Gemini Brett, I learned the astronomy of astrology from him like a number of years ago. And I like the fact that Porphyry house system just divides between the angles. It divides the houses equally. I think that's kind of nice too, but I'm still pretty stuck on Placidus. I can't stop. So anyway, so here's Mars in Pisces. He's not in Aries yet. All right, so you'll know your chart might look like that, and your chart might have like big wide houses and then tiny little skinny ones. That happens. It's there's nothing wrong about that. That just planets will spend more time in one area than another, and you know there's a lot of history behind that. So that's what that is. So I'm going to stop that share, and then I'm going to do. Let's go back to this. And so here we just have everything all nice and equal and nice and clean. And then, so when I say if Mars is in your first house, that means it'll be here. When I say if Mars is in your second house, it'll be here. Each house has a category, an area of expression. And so here's another chart that I like. I'm going to do a new share that I created this a while ago, a long time ago, actually. Just some, oops, here we go. Just some keywords. So that will be up for the whole thing, but I'm just going to talk to you. So I'm just going to look at my notes. You can watch that if you want, but, and you can even snapshot that. All right. I created that myself, and I don't care if you copy it. All right. So let's get started. So if Mars transits your first house. So Mars transits the first house. So Mars is in its natural home here. If you have this transit moving through that area of your chart, there's going to create a lot of additional energy for you. You're going to feel more dominant. You're going to feel more assertive, even aggressive at times, because that means you've got Aries already in your first house and you're used to this, right? Your physical energy is going to be heightened, and then you're going to need to plan carefully how you do things, because you will want to stay active the whole time Mars is in that area, because it's its natural home. If you're not active and you're sedentary, or you're sedentary and then all of a sudden you get up and you try to start to do something, you could actually injure yourself. You know, you just can't get up and run a marathon if you've been sitting on your rear end for 3 months. You've got to do things. So this is great inspiration to be physically active if you have Mars in your first house, right? Now, it's also very independent. It's very upbeat. We want to accomplish a lot when it's in this area. If we don't, then that more difficult side of Mars will show up. So we need to pay attention to that, because Mars, if it's not being expressed properly, is going to be expressed by doing stuff. It's going to express itself in a difficult way. And in this regard, in that first house, and the sign of Aries represents head injury, headaches, bang in your head because you're not paying attention. All right. So that's it in a nutshell. So that's it. If you have Mars in your first house, right? If Mars is transiting that first house, where is the picture? I thought I put it up. Here we go. So if Mars is in that area, your self-image, how you look, your motivation, your survival mode, self-interest, all Mars stuff, because that's what it's at. All right. All right, let's go back. I wondered, did I share my notes with you? Maybe I did. I could do that. That's okay. You guys can go read them. I don't know if I shared my notes on that one with you or not, but anyway, so Mars in the second house. So when we have Mars in the second house, that second house represents what we love and what we value, and that is activated. So your desire to earn more, your desire to be more creative, create new money-making ideas, which can be very successful. Aries, Mars in Aries, Mars moving through that sector can create, you take a chance, you take a risk, then it could easily pay off, especially if it's something that you are very creative with, like taking a hobby and turning it in more into making money. Figure that out if that resonates with you, especially if Mars is moving through your second house, right? Best not to, another thing that's kind of a negative thing, if it can't be expressing itself in a positive way. Mars moving through that second house, the ego can, because we're really, our ego, Mars and Aries, is super connected to our stuff. So we have to make sure we're really careful about not being overly possessive about what we have. All right. You're already, wherever, if this is for you, let me tell you, you already have Aries in that area. So wherever I'm talking about, if you say, hey, that's where it is in my chart, you already have Aries there. Mars is just going to stir the pot now, right? There's a lot of people in the world that are stirring the pot. People that are very focused on what they want and nothing else. All right. So work that piece for you. All right. If things don't feel comfortable, then you just sit back for a little while until you feel inspired as to what do I really want to do. That's the best way to use that. We don't want to feel, you know, what's the right word here? We don't want to be just overly pushed into creating, and I don't know what I'm trying to say here right now. Isn't that interesting? Because it's about money, it's about values, about what I love, even who I love. See, I didn't even include that because I can't include everything. Otherwise, this would be hours long. That's what we got to go with. That's what we have to go with, who I love, what I love, how I want to use my skills and talents to earn a living, and how I'm inspired right now in these 7 months to do what I want, not what anybody else is telling me, right? So try that, work with that. All right, next. So that next area of the chart, which would be what? The third house, right? So that's our communicating and networking and writing and letters. And I'm not talking about everything because that would just take forever, but you can look at this and glean out of here what's important for you. Okay, I want you to do that. So make sure, let me see what I'm sharing. Yes, I'm still sharing everything I want to share. Okay, just making sure. Oh, jeepers. All right. We went back to the picture and I lost it. Sorry, guys. Hold on. I'll get back. Where is it? Oh, it went away. Let me try it again. Hold on. I'll get it back. I'll get it back. Yes, I will. I'm running into difficulties. Hold on. I don't know where it went. Let's do a new screen share. And here we are. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I'm having I lost my pictures completely. I'm doing this while Mercury retrograde is conjunct my Mercury in my third house. I'll look that up. All right, let's get back to the screen share. There we go. Okay. So next, third house. I want to talk about the third house. So if Mars is in Aries and retrograde in your third house, so again, that 7-month period where it's going to be moving through and retrograding. And for some of us, I want you to know that it might be in 2 areas. It might start its movement in your second house, move into your third house, retrograde back into your second house, and then when it goes direct, it goes back into the third. So it could very well be in 2 different houses, which is most likely, again, as long as you don't use just the whole sign houses, right? Okay. I know that's a little technical, but anyways, Mars transiting the third house. So this activates the thinking mind, how you communicate with those around you, right? So you're already an assertive communicator because Aries already sits in that sector, but now that Mars is there, it's going to amplify these natural abilities even more. So information is going to come at you hard and fast, and you love it. The hard part of this is going to be sifting and sorting and deciding what information you want to keep and what you don't. But you already do that, right? Because Mars and Aries in your third house is already very active anyways. So take some time, do the best you can to just say, okay, this is how it is. This is okay. That fighting spirit of Mars is just like, you want to really gather as much information as you can. Now, if you're not able to use this energy quick enough or fast enough or thorough enough, you could be incredibly argumentative, combative. It's great for debate club. If you're in high school, right? In college, Mars in or Aries in that sector, great for being a great debater. So take your time in that area, but Mars moving through there, again, lots of information, but your communication might be so fast and so furious that sometimes you don't even know what you said or you don't even know what you heard. And then you could easily engage with others, or it could come at you that other people are being incredibly argumentative all the time. You have no idea why. And it's because you're attracting it. And it's time for you to slow down and to, this is true for every single house, every single one of us, opportunity to sit down and say, why am I attracting this? So there's nothing wrong with being assertive in your communication. There's nothing wrong with standing up for what you believe in. But the problem is if you start to get argumentative and angry and stressed and so over assertive that people are just arguing with you, then that's not productive. So it's time to slow it down. And so you have that opportunity over the next 7 months. All right. Now, if Mars is in Aries, is moving through your 4th house, and then it will retrograde as well. So this area of the chart, again, is about home and family, but it's also about those unconscious family beliefs, what our family has taught us, and what, our parents taught us, and what we teach our kids, and what our grandparents taught our parents, and great-grandparents taught our grandparents, and that on and on and on, further back, and what we're teaching our kids and our grandkids forward. However that looks, that's what that is, that 4th house. It's not just home, family, private life, because it is those things, but it's also the psychological beliefs of the family and of the private life. So when Mars in Aries moves through that area, that's getting kicked up. That's getting activated. And so we're going to have to figure out how to move through these things. Family stuff can be very frustrating and very irritating, where you might be trying to dynamically move through arguments and lifelong disagreements with family members. This is a way to move it through. Have those tough conversations. Try and keep the heat a little low, right? Try and lower that heat. Try and unplug from argument and from anger and stress, and you will be able to really accomplish something and clear some family karma. This is a great opportunity to take action in that regard. Okay. So, and that's that 5th house area of the chart. I mean, the 4th house area of the chart. We're moving on to the 5th house. So the 5th house area of the chart, that is a fiery area as well as the 1st house was. Because Leo is the natural ruler in that area. So when Mars is in that area of the chart, this is creative expression, playfulness, amusement, self-expression. We can feel competitive in this area, while Mars is moving through here, which is fine. What we can do with this is it can really inspire us to be creative. Now, there are plenty of people that say, I don't have a creative bone in my body. Well, okay. But with Mars and Aries moving through that sign and through that area of the chart, you have an opportunity to discover what you're really creative about. All right. And that is physically creating things that you're passionate about. That's both Mars and the 5th house. Now, another thing that 5th house area is about taking risks of the heart. Gambling too. Risks of the heart. Leo rules the heart, but just these financial risks that we will sometimes take with transits through our 5th house. So we need to pay attention to that. Hey, yeah. Mars moving through there, maybe you will have a love affair. Maybe you'll infuse this great new energy into your current love relationship, so you can really turn up the fire and turn up the heat. Why not? That's what that passion's about. We gotta have passion, right? Find that passion in your life. Find that so you're able to use it. If you're feeling frustrated and things don't feel passionate, then it turns into something else. It turns into, people are very passionate when they argue, and then they go and they make up, and that's the best they've ever had, without saying it out loud. So that's that 5th house. So find a way to work with that in a positive fashion. Either, learn to create something new, pick up that artwork or whatever that you've wanted to do, write that poetry, write that book, what is your passion? Engage it now. Engage it now. It's so important that you do that. Now, for other people, for some people, and for many, certain children are a product of the fifth house as well, right? So your kids, your children might need more of your attention than ever. They might be incredibly needy at this point in time for one reason or another. This does not have to be negative. It's just something will show up that will show you that your children need your attention at this point in time. So there's that. Now, moving on to the sixth house. When Mars is in Aries, moving through that area of your chart, your work and activities that you do every day are energized. Now, this area of the chart is naturally ruled by Virgo, which is service to others and a very non-ego placement in the astrology chart. So there's a number of ways this can work out. First off, Mars in Aries is very ego-focused. It's egotistical, but sometimes we need that because sometimes we are just doormats. Some of us are doormats. Some of us just let everybody do what they need to. We're all going to get a chance to step up to ask for what we want and what we need. So Mars moving through the sixth house, first off, is going to cause a little conflict because Mars is ego-oriented, action-oriented, and Virgo is more about how I can serve others. So you will have to find that balance there somehow. Mars in that area of the chart is also about the things that we do every day. So work, our regular work routine. And, I get up in the morning, I do this, I do this, I do this. That's going to amplify it even more. Okay. So, but this isn't, and this is just like, again, Mars enters Aries on the 27th of June. I'm not sure exactly when it will enter your sixth house, but in there somewhere, you're going to really feel energized. When Mars goes retrograde, we're going to take some time again and go internal. You can listen to the beginning of this again, any one of you, to remember and to re-listen to how we use it in the retrograde way, okay? Which is internal, processing things inside. Mars isn't happy about that, but we're going to do it anyways. We're going to do it. So when Mars is in that sixth house, another thing is your health and wellness. That's your overall health and wellness. If Mars is moving through there and spending a significant amount of time going back and forth, then that means you need to pay attention to something in your physicalness and your health, whether it's your diet, whether you need to move more. Mars in Aries typically says you need to move more. And some people, if they move more too quickly, they'll be injured and then they'll be in rehab. So there's so many different scenarios that can happen with this energy. So what else do I want to say about that? Let me see if I missed anything. So to avoid this situation that's not healthy so looking at the situation we're in is actually what I'm trying to say. Looking at the situation we're in, the pandemic, right? It's not going away anytime soon. I know some people think that it's over and we're all better, but this will go on for a little while. And if Mars is in your sixth house, then it's important for you to pay attention to your health because Mars rules fevers. Okay. So take care of yourself. I'm not saying you get sick, just be extra cautious, a little extra cautious, whatever that means to you for your own sake. That's all. All right. Good. All right. Moving on to the seventh house. So Mars, when it moves into the seventh house in the sign of Aries and retrograde. Seventh house is our partnerships, our relationships. You can see it in that little diagram right there. Partnerships, relationships, and your relationship with your spouse. Now, all of these have gone through typically or almost likely Venus retrograde in Gemini. All right. From May 13th to June 25th. 24th if you're on the west coast of the US. So in Gemini, right? Venus, love, relationships. Gemini is how well we communicate. So many people, so many couples, everybody a lot of people still, even in isolation, quarantine, stay at home orders, depending on where you live, especially in the United States. So people may be a little tired of each other and realizing that we love each other more deeply than ever before, or we love each other, we need therapy, or I don't love you at all anymore. And those are some of the scenarios. Now, when Mars enters the seventh house, which is that area of Venus, partnerships and relationships, this is going to come up. All right. So if you haven't handled things while Venus was retrograde, now her transit is in that one area is April 9th to July 30th. So there's some things going on simultaneously here. Mars moving through the seventh house, people will be very focused on what they need. They're going to be focused on what they're not getting in a relationship and what they know they need in a relationship. And it's going to be going on for 7 months, and we're going to have an opportunity here to work through that. We can't ignore these issues. We need to work through what isn't working and take steps into what will be more healthy for you and for your partner as individuals. And if you decide that it's something that you want to do together, then you'll do it together. All right. And if you decide you're not going to, then you're not going to. It's up to you. These are personal choices. So we can't ignore those things. Now, we also have to pay attention to any of this is also true for business partnerships. Anything such as that. All right. So those areas of the chart are very, very important to pay attention to. Seventh house is also open enemies. So if you're in court, open enemies, I know that's so old fashioned, but what it just means is somebody that you're in litigation with, whether it's, divorce court or a lawsuit about something or other. Excuse me, that area of the chart is active too. So there'll be a lot of activity going on there. Of course, court systems are probably trying to catch up a backlog. So there's going to be a lot of activity going on while Mars is in Aries, and especially for you folks who have it in the seventh house. Partnerships, relationships, if you're in litigation with anything, then you're going to be able to, there's going to be a lot of activity there. All right. I know. It's a little bit of everything for everybody. It's just how it's going, right? We just have this opportunity to take our time. All right, moving on to the eighth house. So Mars in the eighth house. So when it moves through that sector, this is the sector of the chart that is about, it'll make us aware of our joint resources. And so the seventh house, the one before, is about our partners. So we act like that's the first house, and the next house, the eighth, which is the second from the first, it just represents, I know what, derivative houses. It's your partner's finances. It's your joint resources, your shared finances, right? So the money. So that is going to get stirred up with Mars and Aries moving through that sector. So what do you want financially? What does your partner need? There is a whole slew of questions and answers and activity that is here to really stir things up. Lots of personal feelings, addressing these problems if there are problems with your finances and your resources. All right. So that gets stirred up. Now that area is also the area of our intimate relationships, right? With our partner, that real private time. So whatever's going on there, that can come up as well. So you may need to have the conversation about that area of your life. I don't know who watches this, so this has to be kid friendly. But you know what I mean, right? So that is something that could come up. So you want to have that real honest, open conversation with your partner if something isn't working out for you in that regard, okay? In that intimate, private time when it's just two of you. Now, another thing that goes on here too is that eighth house area is the area of death and transformation. Now, it's not your own death, but it's that process that in how we handle and how we process other people's death or other people's transformation into the other realm. And it can be very shamanic-y. So if you're an energy person or a shamanic type person, this is an opportunity to just do a lot of deep shamanic work into your own experience, going into the underworld and coming back out, and being reborn and transforming your inner being in that spirit. It's also an opportunity here to really look at any of the things that are metaphysical, they will say occult, if you will, and see if it's something that you want to dig into even further to study and advance yourself. So that's the 8th house. And then moving into the 9th house. So if Mars is moving through your 9th house, this area of the chart is about your beliefs and your ideas. So they may be challenged now. Mars in Aries is the ego, right? And the ego is saying, well, why do I believe this? Why do I believe this? And so this may be a time where we're going to reevaluate what we believe in. Sagittarius is the natural ruler here, right? So our intellect and that world explorer and that person who wants to experience life. I don't know how the world is going to open up if we're able to travel like that or not this year. But the point is we're going to feel like we want to, especially if we have Aries in our 9th house, Mars moving through that sign. So we're going to have this opportunity to like really expand our own experience. So psychologically and able to look at what we believe in and is this my truth anymore, right? It does link up with what we were taught from the 4th house, but do I believe this anymore? Is this how I believe? What is it that I really want to do with my life? How does that feel to me, right? And it's opening up to your own authenticity. And really, depending on your age and what transits you've been through, there are periods where we finally get beyond that influence of our parents. You know, usually it's the first Saturn return around between 28 and 30, right? But sometimes it goes a little later than that because there's people still staying home at that point in time just because of the, financial circumstances and such. But look at what you believe in. So that Mars in Aries is going to help you to really step into what I want, what I believe. Let me change that. Let me explore more. There's something deeper here. What's my truth? Those are all beautiful questions when we look at that 9th house. All right, moving on to Mars in the 10th house. Now that 10th house is where we are driven regarding our career, public image. Now, Mars in Aries is just going to say, the ego drive, that I am energy is going to say, well, what do I want? Not what I believe in. That was the 9th house. But what do I want in my career? What do I want to be known for? How do I want to present what I'm doing now to the world? Again, we've gone through a lot of things just in these last few months, and it's not ending anytime soon. This Mars energy, this Mars and Aries energy is stirring everybody up to really choose what it is you want to do personally, and then you'll find your tribe, because we're kind of swapping people right now. We're swapping groups, swapping tribes. It's not going to settle anytime soon, but we're starting to sort things out just a wee bit, and that's helpful. So when Mars moves through that 10th house, your career can be questioned. You can question your career. Is this career ethical? Does it feel right to me? Is it what I really want to be known for? When Mars in Aries is at that height, the apex of the chart, you are very public. Things are very public. So drive, ambition, you want to push forward because that's what Mars and Aries in that area is going to do. You're going to feel like you really need the recognition for what you're doing, and you're going to push, push, push. The problem with that is you're not going to see the bigger picture. Mars and Aries won't see the bigger picture. It only sees exactly what it wants. That's it. So I would just advise that pay attention to who you're stepping on the way to the top, because if you step on too many people and you're not being authentic, then there will be a crash. When Mars gets into its retrograde and then moves out, there will be a reckoning of sorts. But for the most part, be authentic, be assertive. When you see opportunities, take them, especially if it's not injuring anybody else. You're going to be independent, and you're just going to be, this is an entrepreneur spirit if ever I saw it. Mars in Saturn's house, two benefics, right? The two benefics, they call that negative, but to me, it's drive. It's drive to accomplish what you want. So focus your energy well, do the best you can without stepping on other people's toes, and still being assertive. You're going to make great career advancement this year. All right. Now, the 11th house. So when Mars moves into your 11th house for you, if it's for you, and as in the sign of Aries. So when it's in that sector, we're driven to engage in group activities, because it's kind of interesting. Mars and Aries is just very selfish. It's just like, what do I want? Well, I'm going to take what I want and I'm going to pull it into, and I'm going to engage in those lifelong goals that I've had. It takes individuals. That 11th house is Aquarius area, which means it's about humanitarian causes. It's a motorcycle, a rebel. No, just a motorcycle on City Street. Our interests can be in humanitarian causes, because I mean, if I'm going to be involved in a humanitarian cause, I need to have an interest in it, and that's that Aries energy, right? That Mars and Aries. So pull yourself into that. Pull in there. Be very assertive in engaging in those qualities, engaging in those humanitarian causes, those group activities that interest you a lot. This is where you can just go and be somebody who is an activist, or and even a protest and to stand up for those causes. This is what we need. We need people to do that, right? And you might feel like you want to do that, but if that's not your gig, you will still may feel that you want a lot more activity. Now, if you have Aries in that area, you might be like really jonesing for group connections and sports and group activities and things like that, because that's what Aries in that area is about as well. Really connecting as an individual to a group. My identity is with a group of people. Like, I'm a soccer player, I'm a baseball player, or, an activist for whatever. So you're going to really engage that energy when Mars is moving through that sector. All right. Now, the final one is Mars through the 12th house. And again, this one's really personal for me, because that's where it is for me, and it's so hard to read your own chart, but I can do it. So this can be a tricky one, because Mars is just really not that. It's just so not a fan of being in the 12th house. It's the house before the one it rules. It's the collective conscious, right? It's the bigger picture. It just sees everything, but it's our unconsciousness and our unconscious behaviors. And when Mars in Aries moves into that sector, it's going to trigger all those things up. This is very psychological, and it's going to bring many unconscious behaviors from your past lives, from your childhood that have been initiated or triggered. It's going to bring them to the surface so you can really approach it, look at it, see what it is. These are opportunities to work on those old behaviors and old patterns, to work through karma. So it's an opportunity to actually say, okay, what do I want to do? Pisces, that 12th house, is also meditation, it's music, it's singing. I am dying to get a kayak, and find a place to go put my kayak. My daughter lives near a lake, so I might take it to her house, because I can't lift it and put it on my car every time I want to go somewhere. I just have to take it somewhere and leave it, right? So, I mean, to me, that's what I'm going to do. Alone time out on the water, just paddling. I just need to do it so bad. Can't get to the beaches this year. New Hampshire just won't let it happen. Only 50%. And then where I live, you have to pay to get in. You have to make reservations. So there's all these stumbling blocks. So I can't even get to walk on the beach. A lot of you know that I like to walk on, right? So I don't have that opportunity. So I have to find other ways to use it. So for me, that's what I'm going to do. So for you, water, music, spirituality, meditation, and things like that, yoga. And what can I do for humanity on a bigger picture? It's not quite like Aquarius, but it's like, what can I do for the collective? And so what we can do for the collective, especially if this Mars and Aries is in your 12th house, is to make sure what your contribution to the pot is, you continue to do it. Your light. Like, I'm always going to do these things. It's just what I share to the collective. And hopefully it helps, and hopefully it makes a difference in somebody's life. And I think it does. But find your little thing. So we have to be careful of, so do that. And then I'll put a period there. One of the things we need to be careful of is self-negative talk, and being mad at ourselves, or getting all pissy about something, or it isn't fair. Just all those like little internal, like if you could just sit down and be really quiet, and you can hear a little 2-year-old in your head, like pitching a fit, that's what can happen. Those things are going to get stirred up, and they're going to come out. And when they come out, you're not going to have to, you won't do those unconscious psychological behaviors anymore. You know, avoiding blaming other people for your emotions, or why is this happening, or why, anyways, just, life isn't fair, those kind of statements. I've heard those before, and I've worked through a lot of that. And, and when, close friends tell you, it's just like, yeah, that's just a little, 12 housey right there. You work through it. So whatever these emotions that are super deep, they're going to be coming, they're going to be triggered. Somebody outside of you, again, will trigger it, whether it's somebody on TV you don't even know, but they just upset you, or if it's somebody that you do know and they just are always saying a little something that just irritates you. You've got to work through that and figure out where and why am I acting that way. So this is your time to do it. So I'm going to stop my share now. All right. So, oh my gosh, I don't even know how long that was. I'll know when I finally hit end record. That's a lot. I know I went really fast. So you can slow me down, especially on YouTube. There's a little toolbar, a little cogwheel, and you can click on that and you can slow me down. I have some people that I like to watch. I'm not going to say who, other astrologers, and they talk so slow. I turn them up 1.5 to 2 times because it's so long. He talks so slow. I can hardly stand it. So I'm a Gemini. What can I say? You gotta talk faster. All right. I'm going to leave you with that. This is where you reach me. Comment below as well. Please, if this is informative and helpful to you, this took like about 8 hours altogether. The written forecast will be on my website page, and the link is below in the YouTube here. Please come and consider contributing, if you would, to my website. There's a donation button there, or just join me on Patreon and you get lots of content there. That link is below as well. And thank you. I appreciate that. Please appreciate your support, and share and add this to all of your groups. And I will see you in just a couple of days when I do the forecast, the next weekly forecast. All right. Blessings. Namaste.